Hello everyone, my name is Rick van Bruggen from Neo Technology, and here I am again recording a lovely new episode for our Neo4j podcast series. And yeah, today it's interesting. I'm joined here by someone from the UK, Chris Skardon from Tournr. Hey Chris.
Hey Rick, how are you?
Hey. Yeah, I'm very well. And yourself?
I'm good, thank you.
Super. Hey, Chris, we've been interacting, and known each other for a couple of years already, and you've been in the Neo4j ecosystem for a while. But I was triggered to get you on this podcast because of the .NET client announcement, right?
Yep, yeah, I think so.
Absolutely. So tell us who you are, Chris. What have you been doing with Neo for the past couple of years?
Right, well, I'm Chris. I'm a freelance developer. I spend pretty much all my time in the .NET frame namespaces. And a couple of years ago, a client came to me and asked me to sort of have a look at how to develop one of their systems for them. And I spent some time going through various NoSQL databases to try and hunt out the best ones for their environment, and came across Neo4j probably around about version 1.6, I think. And I've kind of stuck with it since then.
It's addictive, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's very addictive. I mean, I use lots of different databases at the same time. I don't, not restricted to just one or the other, but I find myself gradually moving more and more towards just sort of putting everything into Neo because it works and does everything I need it to do.
Super, that's great to hear. And what was the main attraction when you sort of started going with it? What was the domain like, or what was the main reason for going to Neo?
Well, the domain is a large, I don't think the thing with databases is that you can pretty much fit any domain into any database. It doesn't really matter. You can always fudge something into it if you want to. But what I found with Neo was that it fitted without me having to translate anything. I didn't have to write a set of translation tables in my SQL server, or start putting in weird links in my document database to try and hook things around and find things. It was just automatically linked, and it makes navigating through the domain a lot easier. I mean, the domain in this aspect was kind of it's kind of like a sort of it's very hard to describe, really. It's kind of basically it was a graph. And the graph database just fitted in exactly as they described it to me, and it was a graph. They drew it out on paper. It looked like a graph. Everything they've ever drawn has been a graph based. It just was what it should have always been. And Neo was fast and performant, and it's worked well for me since then.
Super. So my second question on these podcasts is always, why did you get into graph databases? So I guess it's mostly around the modeling then for you, right? It's the modeling fit that sort of drove you there.
Yeah. I think the modeling fit and being able to query things. Obviously starting off in 1.6, Cypher was fairly fairly basic, and you were still doing queries using Gremlin. And
those were the days.
yeah, back in the days. And gradually over time, it's moved much more towards Cypher, and Cypher's just a much nicer language to use. It's a lot clearer to read. You can still get in the wrong, easily get it wrong sometimes, but in general, you can sort of take something that's generated from the Cypher and just read it, and it makes sense. You know what you're pulling out because you can see it. And I think as Cypher gets more and more things added to it, I think it will just get better and better.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, absolutely. So, and what about the .NET client? How and why did you get into that? That's probably an interesting story as well.
Well, yeah, okay. So being .NET developer, first thing which pretty much every .NET developer will do is they'll fire up Visual Studio, create yourself a little console test app to hook against the database, and head into the NuGet world and do a quick search for Neo4j. So NuGet's like our package manager. So the equivalent for Ruby, I think, is things like gems. I'm not sure what PHP has or Python or any of those, but it's kind of just like a package manager.
Mm-hmm.
And you do a search for Neo4j, and the top one pops up is Neo4j client. There's a couple of other small ones which are developed independently or by other people, but generally I'm going to go with the biggest one because it's the one that seems to have the most sort of documentation and users on it, and most likely to give me help when it goes wrong.
Yep.
And I started using it. After a little while, there's a few things you want to have in it, or there's a few things which, a few bugs, and issued a few pull requests. Started answering questions on Stack Overflow to, firstly, to help myself learn how to do the different things that people are trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Also help the community because, the more people who can use it easily, the more people there are to evangelize in a sense and get it out there. And gradually over time, I just took over. I started doing a few more pull requests and answering more and more Stack Overflow. And then we hit our hiatus for a year or so, where the original author, Tatham, had to sort of step back because of many things, life generally.
Yes.
And
life gets in the way.
It does get in the way.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time without any, pull requests. Really small pull requests were maybe getting sort of pushed through fine, but the big one which we'd missed for a while was transaction support.
Yeah.
And the pull request that existed for that was massive. I mean, it was good. But it was such a big change that Tatham just would never have had the time to do it. And so it kind of languished there for a while. And then about, I guess, 4 or 5 months ago, Tatham popped up on the sort of client's GitHub page and said, I don't have time. I'm looking to hand this over to find someone. And I'd been doing a lot of help on Stack Overflow and stuff, and I said, I'll take over. And sort of long story short, I have.
Yeah. Super. Yeah. No, I mean, I can't tell you how happy I and we are about that, because it's obviously it's a big development community, and it's really important for us to have someone maintain and help with that. So thank you so much for doing that. Really appreciate it. So maybe just final question here. Where is this going, Chris? Where is this going from your perspective? How do you see graphs evolve in the .NET world in general, and how do you see the .NET client, the Neo4j client, evolve in the next couple of months and years? Any
Sure.
comments on that?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the client itself. We'll start with that. I think that's going to keep tabs with updates to the actual server itself. So 2.3 comes out soon, and hopefully we'll be able to cater for everything that's in there. And then when version 3 comes out, I'm looking at adding the ability to use the Bolt serializer underneath it instead of just using REST.
Lovely. Yeah.
And I'd like to get it to be as good as some of the other NoSQL databases are in terms of .NET usage, and that's going to just end up adding a few sort of niceties around and investigating whether something like a link driver is feasible or even worthwhile doing, and kind of seeing how basically you're just going to see how it goes and keep on pushing it and adding new bits into it, and hopefully just make it faster and better. In terms of graphing in .NET world, hopefully more people will start to use it. It's I'm lucky. I work for myself, so I can sort of help pick the databases.
Yep.
And I don't have the problem of being sort of weighed down by a big load of servers behind me, which all run SQL Server, and they've paid for all the licenses, so they're going to use those SQL servers until their licenses run out.
Mm-hmm.
I can pick faster databases, different databases, and I think .NET's moving that way now. People are starting to use the different databases more and more, and hopefully Neo fits into there well. It's a well-known graph database that performs well, and .NET does interact with it fine. I don't have any problems with it. I've actually gone through and converted Tournr over the last couple of months from a document database to Neo4j. Aside from a dramatic cut in code base,
Yeah.
It hasn't been that hard to do, and I'm very pleased with it. And I think it gives me a lot more forward momentum. I can do a lot more with my projects now when they're based around the graph than I could do with the document. I think a lot less problems with them. It's a lot easier to do.
Super. Cool. Well, I mean, that's great input and great feedback, and I'm sure lots of people are excited to see the .NET client, but also Neo4j in the .NET world evolve that way. Thanks again for your help. Good luck with Tournr and your projects for different clients. And I think I'll see you and buy you a beer at Graph Connect, right?
Yeah. I'll see you then.
I'm looking forward to that, Chris. Very cool. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, speak to you soon, mate.
Bye.